You walk into a bar, scan the tap list, and feel good about yourself. You skip the obvious mass-produced lagers and reach for something that looks small, local, and independent. But what if that craft beer in your hand is owned by the very corporate giant you thought you were avoiding? Today, we are exposing 9 so-called craft beers secretly owned by Budweiser, and why you are paying more for a lie: the craft beer illusion. For decades, Budweiser represented everything craft beer drinkers rejected: industrial production, bland flavor, corporate control. Then something changed. Instead of fighting craft beer, big beer learned how to wear its skin. As independent breweries exploded in popularity, multinational corporations saw the writing on the wall. Consumers were demanding authenticity. They wanted local stories, experimental flavors, and the feeling that their money supported passionate brewers, not boardrooms. So, Budweiser's parent company, Anheuser-Busch InBev, didn't compete head-on. They bought the competition quietly, one beloved brewery at a time. The genius of the strategy was invisibility. The name stayed the same, the labels stayed rustic, the tap rooms stayed cozy, and most importantly, the prices stayed high. Because craft beer drinkers were not just buying beer, they were buying identity. What most people never stopped to ask was a simple question: who actually owns this brewery now? Ownership matters because ownership controls ingredients, sourcing, production, scale, and profit priorities. When a small brewery answers to shareholders instead of its community, things change. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. And by the time you notice, you are no longer drinking craft beer. You are drinking corporate beer with a craft costume. Let's start with the one that opened the floodgates: Goose Island. Goose Island is often remembered as the first domino to fall. Founded in Chicago in the late 1980s, it quickly became a craft pioneer, celebrated for innovation, bold flavors, and a refusal to follow the rules. Bourbon County Stout, their legendary Imperial Stout, became a benchmark for beer enthusiasts. The brewery's reputation felt untouchable. It was a symbol of independence, creativity, and the craft movement itself. To drink Goose Island was to participate in a story, a community, a moment that felt larger than the bottle. Then, in 2011, everything shifted quietly. Goose Island was acquired by Anheuser-Busch InBev. At the time, many loyal drinkers brushed it off. They were assured nothing would change. The brewers would remain, the recipes would remain, the soul of the brewery would remain. On the surface, the narrative held. The labels stayed the same, the branding stayed familiar. Loyal fans felt reassured. But reassurance was exactly what made the transition so seamless. Behind the scenes, the reality was entirely different. Production scale exploded. National distribution became standard, followed quickly by global reach. Ingredients that were once carefully sourced from local farms were replaced with standardized suppliers. Variability, the quirks, the subtle imperfections that made the beer unique gave way to predictability. Character became consistency. Every batch looked and tasted nearly identical, no matter where it arrived. The artistry that had defined Goose Island became a formula. And yet, the price did not drop. If anything, it increased. You were still paying craft-level prices, but now the beer was backed by one of the largest brewing corporations on Earth. The storytelling stayed intimate. The labels still evoked Chicago pride. The marketing still promised authenticity. But the operation had become industrial, a finely tuned machine optimized for efficiency, scale, and margins. Goose Island proved something crucial. Consumers either did not notice or they did not care. The brand's allure, its sense of independence and prestige, was enough to maintain loyalty. That realization triggered a shopping spree. Corporations recognized that craft perception could be maintained even under full corporate control. Goose Island was no longer just a brewery, it was a blueprint for engineered authenticity. Consumers paid for the narrative, not the autonomy, and the craft beer market would never look the same. Elysian Brewing. Elysian built its identity on rebellion, punk-inspired aesthetics, anti-establishment messaging, labels that practically screamed independence, attitude, and defiance. Every can looked like a manifesto. Every batch carried the sense that this was a brewery that existed to challenge the norms, to push boundaries, to reject the ordinary. To drink Elysian was to participate in a small-scale revolt, a celebration of craft as a lifestyle, not just a beverage. Fans embrace the energy, the creativity, the audacious spirit that set Elysian apart from the endless conveyor belts of mass-market beer. Then, in 2015, everything changed, though very few noticed at first. Anheuser-Busch InBev acquired Elysian, the very brewery that had built its reputation on counterculture, on questioning authority, on resisting corporate influence, became a part of one of the largest beer conglomerates in history. The irony was almost comical. The skulls remained on the cans. The provocative names stayed intact. The punk branding that had made drinkers feel connected to a movement continued to dominate shelf space. On the surface, nothing appeared to have changed. And for most consumers, nothing had. Why would they question ownership when the imagery and messaging felt authentic? But the changes were subtle and systematic. Recipes were carefully adjusted to appeal to the broadest possible audience, smoothing out quirks and imperfections that once defined the beer's character. Experimental batches became rarer. Creative risks, once the heartbeat of the brewery, gave way to distribution priorities and scalable processes. The emphasis shifted from authenticity to consistency, from rebellion to reliability. What had once been a brewery defined by audacity and individuality now operated under a framework optimized for efficiency, margins, and market penetration. Elysian became a textbook case of manufactured authenticity. A brand that still looked rebellious, felt edgy, and carried the aura of independence, yet operated entirely within the system it once mocked. Every aspect of its new structure was designed to maintain the illusion of craft, while benefiting from the resources, reach, and control of a global conglomerate. The premium price tag remained, reflecting craft prestige rather than production costs. Consumers continued to pay extra, believing they were supporting a small, independent brewery, while the reality was that the rebellion they loved had been absorbed, managed, and monetized by corporate hands. The beer didn't lose its flavor, but the story it sold, independence, defiance, edge, became the most carefully curated ingredient of all: Wicked Weed. Wicked Weed earned its reputation through boldness. Its sour beers challenged the palate, its experimental batches pushed boundaries. Every release felt daring, niche, and fearless. To craft enthusiasts, Wicked Weed was more than a brewery, it was a statement. It was proof that small-scale brewers could innovate, disrupt, and take risks without compromise. Loyal drinkers felt part of something alive, something dangerous in the best possible way. Every sip carried the essence of independence, of a brewer unafraid to defy trends or follow formulas. It was craft at its rawest, most exciting, most uncompromising. Then, in 2016, Anheuser-Busch InBev quietly acquired Wicked Weed. The news hit the craft world like a shockwave. Purists reacted with fury. Forums and social media exploded with outrage. Loyal customers felt betrayed, certain that the daring spirit of Wicked Weed had been sold off, diluted by corporate interests. For a moment, it seemed like Big Beer might have miscalculated. Maybe this time, the backlash would actually hurt the strategy. Maybe the perception of independence, the core of Wicked Weed's identity, couldn't survive a corporate takeover. But over time, the outrage faded. The bottles stayed on shelves. Tap handles remained in bars. New drinkers, unaware of the controversy, discovered Wicked Weed for the first time, blissfully ignorant of the acquisition. The brand continued to grow, quietly integrating into Anheuser-Busch's distribution network while retaining the familiar aesthetic, the edgy labels, the experimental branding that had first captured attention. What did change, though, was control. Producing bold sours is complicated, costly, and risky. Corporate ownership introduced a new set of priorities: predictability, scalability, and margin. Recipes were evaluated not just for flavor, but for consistency across millions of pints. Experimental releases were scrutinized through the lens of profitability. What was once a movement driven by creative freedom became an asset managed for growth and return on investment. Wicked Weed survived, but it survived differently. It was no longer purely a statement of craft rebellion. It was now part of a system, a carefully managed piece of a portfolio, a brand with a story sold alongside beer. The fearless brewery hadn't disappeared, it had been absorbed, redefined, and monetized. Consumers still saw the bold labels, the sour bottles, the daring releases, They still tasted the flavors they loved, but behind the taps and bottles, the movement had become a product, and independence had quietly been traded for corporate strategy. 10 Barrel Brewing. 10 Barrel mastered the art of lifestyle branding. Snow-capped peaks, crisp mountain air, campfires under starry skies, snowboards leaning against rustic walls. Every visual, every touch point, told a story of outdoor adventure and authenticity. To the casual drinker, 10 Barrel looked like a brewery born in the mountains, built for rugged exploration rather than spreadsheets and quarterly reports. That image was its greatest asset. Consumers didn't need a detailed history or origin story. They absorbed the vibe, the aesthetic, the feeling of independence, and they bought into it wholeheartedly. In 2014, 10 Barrel was quietly acquired by Anheuser-Busch InBev. The acquisition was strategic, carefully executed, and almost invisible to the public eye. Unlike some brands that announce their new corporate owners with press releases and headlines, 10 Barrel maintained the perception of independence. It didn't need to shout its origins. It whispered them through every label, every ad, every tap room. The mountains on the packaging, the adventure-driven marketing, the artisanal vibe, none of that changed. And that subtlety was precisely what made the acquisition so effective. Behind the scenes, however, everything had shifted. Production scaled dramatically. Brewing operations expanded to meet national distribution demands. Quality control processes were standardized. Recipes were adjusted for consistency across batches. The beer itself became more uniform, more predictable. Every sip was engineered to match the brand image while accommodating the realities of corporate oversight. Distribution widened. Tap rooms grew. What once felt local was now part of a nationwide network, guided by corporate strategy rather than independent innovation. And yet, the illusion held. Drinkers continued to believe they were supporting a rugged, independent operation. They walked into tap rooms thinking they were part of a community, not a marketing blueprint. They bought cans that felt artisanal, unaware of the corporate infrastructure behind every pour. They paid premium prices for beer that looked, smelled, and tasted like craft, even though it operated under the same principles as any multinational beverage brand. 10 Barrel is a masterclass in perception management. It proves that lifestyle branding can create the sense of authenticity even when ownership and control tell a different story. You weren't just buying beer, you were buying the carefully curated image of adventure, freedom, and independence. And in the end, the mountains, the snowboards, and the campfires were real enough to sell you the experience, even if the reality behind the scenes was firmly rooted in corporate oversight. Golden Road. Golden Road was marketed as the neighborhood favorite, the local brewery where community gathered and craft beer culture thrived. Sunlight streamed across its branding. Tap rooms felt inviting, unassuming, and authentically local. To the casual drinker, it was the kind of brewery you could imagine starting with a group of friends in a garage or an old warehouse, where every pint was poured with care and every label told a story. That story was effective. It created trust, loyalty, and emotional attachment. And yet, behind the scenes, the story was only part of the picture. In 2015, Golden Road was acquired by Anheuser-Busch InBev. The move was strategic, calculated, and quietly executed. Unlike some acquisitions that spark headlines or consumer backlash, this one slipped under the radar. Most drinkers continued to associate Golden Road with its local roots, unaware that corporate ownership now dictated production, distribution, and expansion. The illusion of independence remained intact, carefully maintained by the brand's design, marketing, and taproom experience. Consumers were drinking into a narrative of community and craft, but the reality was corporate scale and oversight. The rapid expansion of Golden Road could only have happened with massive corporate backing. National distribution, larger brewing capacity, and extensive marketing campaigns require resources far beyond a typical neighborhood brewery. Yet, the average consumer rarely connected the dots. Tap rooms still felt local. Labels still felt approachable. The imagery of sunshine, surfboards, and simplicity conveyed authenticity. And that authenticity, though carefully engineered, was enough to preserve the sense of trust. The beer didn't need to be small. It only needed to feel small. This is how modern craft deception works. Golden Road became a blueprint for engineered authenticity. Built quickly, scaled even faster, sold quietly. Every element from branding to packaging to taproom experience was calibrated to maintain the illusion of craft. even as the brewery operated under the rules and reach of a multinational corporation. Drinkers paid for the feeling of community, of independence, of small batch care, while every advantage of production, distribution, and marketing flowed directly to corporate ownership. In the end, Golden Road is a lesson in perception. You weren't just buying beer, you were buying the carefully maintained image of craft culture, the sunshine, the neighborhood charm, the sense that what you held in your hand was a part of something local and authentic. The truth, however, is far less romantic. Behind every pour, every can, every visit to a tap room, the reality of corporate control quietly shaped what you thought you were supporting, proving that in modern craft beer, authenticity can be engineered and sold. Blue Point Brewing. Blue Point is one of the quietest acquisitions on this list. No outrage, no headlines, no widespread backlash. That silence is deliberate, and it makes the acquisition all the more effective. There's no controversy to distract, no uproar to fuel discussion. Instead, the story of ownership disappears into the background, leaving consumers to focus solely on what they've always associated with the brand: approachable, reliable craft beer. Acquired by Anheuser-Busch InBev in 2014, Blue Point continues to be perceived by many drinkers as a small, independent brewery. The brand has carefully avoided any messaging that would spark debate about its ownership. Their labels remain simple and familiar, their branding unassuming and non-controversial. The company rarely, if ever, discusses its corporate parentage, and the broader beer community has largely accepted this quiet camouflage. In effect, Blue Point operates in stealth mode, reaping the benefits of corporate control while keeping the illusion of independence alive. This is corporate camouflage at its finest. Behind the scenes, massive distribution power, supply chain resources, and marketing support ensure the beer reaches more shelves and more drinkers than any true independent brewery could. Production is streamlined, quality is consistent, and supply is reliable. The beer tastes like it always did, even as the scale and scope of the operation have expanded. Consumers continue to feel they are supporting a small batch operation, even though decisions about production, sourcing, and expansion are firmly in the hands of a multinational corporation. Predictability is at the heart of corporate ownership. For Blue Point, consistency matters above all else. Every bottle, every can, tastes the way drinkers expect. There's no experimentation that might risk sales, no radical flavor departures that might challenge the base. That safety, that reliability, is what allows corporate ownership to thrive. The brand can maintain its reputation for quality craft beer, but without the uncertainty that comes from true independence. Blue Point demonstrates how subtlety can be more effective than controversy. By flying under the radar, by maintaining a familiar, trustworthy image, the brand preserves consumer loyalty and commands premium shelf space without raising questions about ownership. The beer feels independent, it looks independent, it even tastes independent. But every advantage, every reassurance, is carefully engineered by the corporation behind the curtain. In the end, what you're buying isn't just craft beer, it's a meticulously maintained illusion, one that delivers consistency, predictability, and profit for the corporate owners while leaving the consumer none the wiser. Devil's Backbone. Devil's Backbone built its reputation on heritage. The brand leaned hard into rustic imagery, old-world charm, and a sense of time-honored tradition. Labels showcased cobblestone buildings, weathered barrels, and sprawling countryside landscapes. Every design choice signaled authenticity, craftsmanship, and a story rooted in history. For consumers, it wasn't just beer, it was an experience, a connection to something enduring, something genuine. That connection felt personal, and it commanded loyalty. People didn't just buy a six-pack, they bought a piece of tradition. When Anheuser-Busch InBev acquired Devil's Backbone in 2015, the move was nothing short of strategic. The corporation wasn't just buying a brewery or production capacity, it was buying a narrative, a brand story that resonated deeply with consumers. History sells, nostalgia sells, and when a company acquires a story instead of a factory, it can sell that story indefinitely. The charm of the past becomes a marketing tool, perfectly preserved on the label and in advertising, even as the realities of production and ownership quietly shift behind the scenes. Following the acquisition, production decisions began to change. Expansion became a priority. Distribution reached new markets. The brewery's footprint grew, and efficiency measures were implemented. Yet, none of these changes were visible to the consumer. The rustic imagery, the narrative of tradition, and the old-world aesthetic remained untouched. Every detail of the story, the logo, the barrel-aged visuals, the messaging about handcrafted care was frozen in time. Consumers continued to believe they were supporting a small, independent operation, even as the scale and control moved to a global corporation. You were not buying just beer. You were buying a feeling, a sense of authenticity, craftsmanship, and connection to a simpler, quieter era. That feeling was carefully preserved while everything else evolved. Labels, logos, and storytelling created an illusion of permanence, masking the corporate expansion and strategic decisions happening behind the scenes. The beer may have tasted familiar, and the experience may have felt consistent, but the ownership, control, and strategic priorities had fundamentally changed. Devil's Backbone demonstrates how effectively a brand story can be monetized. Heritage, nostalgia, and perceived tradition can maintain consumer trust long after the reality of independence has vanished. The narrative remains intact, the packaging unchanged, and the price tag stays premium. What changes are the hands that pull the strings and the systems that run the brewery. The feeling of authenticity persists, proving that with the right story, perception can outlast reality. Breckenridge Brewing. Mountain imagery is a powerful tool. It evokes clean air, pure water, and honest, hands-on craftsmanship. It tells a story without saying a word, and Breckenridge Brewing leaned into that story with precision. Their labels feature soaring peaks, crystal-clear streams, and rugged landscapes. Every visual cue signals quality, authenticity, and independence. For many beer drinkers, it's irresistible. You don't just buy the beer, you buy the idea of the mountains, the lifestyle, the craft. It's aspirational, it feels premium, and it works. When Anheuser-Busch InBev acquired Breckenridge Brewing in 2015, the mountains didn't move, the imagery didn't change, the narrative didn't falter. Consumers continued to associate the scenery with purity and small-batch authenticity, never once questioning who was behind the operation. Geography became a shield, a visual barrier that distracted from reality. The mountains told the story so convincingly that ownership, the fact that one of the largest beer conglomerates in the world controlled the brand, remained invisible. The beer itself stayed familiar, comforting, and recognizable. The taste that fans had come to love remained intact, and the premium price tag stayed right where it was. But behind the scenes, control had quietly shifted. Decisions about distribution, marketing, and production moved from the hands of local brewers to a corporate boardroom. Ingredients, sourcing practices, and quality oversight may have changed, but the narrative on the label kept everything looking the same. Consumers continued to pay a premium for the sense of independence, the perception of authenticity, and the feeling that they were supporting a craft operation. It's a clever strategy, one that relies entirely on trust and perception. The mountains aren't just decorative, they're a promise, a reassurance that what's inside the bottle matches what's on the label. And because that imagery is so compelling, most drinkers never stop to question it. They don't realize that what feels small, local, and independent is now part of a global empire. The premium they pay doesn't just cover the beer, it covers the story. In the end, Breckenridge Brewing proves how powerful branding can be. Mountains on a label, streams in a logo, and the idea of craftsmanship can convince consumers of authenticity, even when ownership has quietly shifted. The beer tastes the same, the price stays high, and the control quietly changes hands. The illusion of independence is preserved, and the consumer never notices the shift. Four Peaks. Four Peaks continues to fool a lot of beer drinkers. The brand is deeply intertwined with regional pride, with fans celebrating it as a symbol of their local community. People talk about Four Peaks as if it represents something truly homegrown, a small brewery crafted with care and authenticity. That loyalty is powerful. It isn't built on marketing campaigns or flashy advertisements. It's emotional, organic, and deeply personal. What most people don't realize is that Four Peaks was quietly acquired by Anheuser-Busch InBev in 2015. Since then, the ownership has been barely mentioned. Why would it be? There's no need. The connection people feel to the brand does the heavy lifting. Every time someone picks up a Four Peaks pint or a six-pack, that sense of local pride and tradition carries the weight of credibility. It feels authentic, it feels independent, and it feels worth paying extra for. This is the final illusion at play. The idea that if a product feels local, it must be small, it must be independent, it must be crafted with care. That belief taps into something very human. We like to support our own communities. We like to think we're choosing quality and authenticity over corporate interests. But in this case, that belief comes at a cost. Not just the price on the shelf, which is higher than many other beers in the same category, but the hidden cost of thinking you're supporting a small, independent brewery when you're actually funding one of the largest beer conglomerates in the world. Four Peaks isn't alone in this. Many other breweries leverage the same emotional attachment, the same story of locality and heritage, while quietly operating under massive corporate ownership. The difference is subtle. It's woven into the packaging, the names, the imagery. It's in the stories shared on social media, the community events, the collaborations with local organizations. All of it reinforces the illusion. And when that illusion works, it works beautifully. Fans continue to pay a premium for the sense of independence, the feeling of supporting local craftsmanship, never questioning that the reality behind the brand is something entirely different. In the end, that belief is expensive. It's expensive in dollars, but also in trust. The final truth is simple. Four Peaks may taste local, feel local, even celebrate local, but the independence, that's just a story, what you should be drinking instead. Not all craft beer is a lie, but real independence is rare, and it requires effort to recognize. It isn't enough to trust a logo, a label, or the story printed on a bottle. True craft beer demands transparency, accountability, and ownership that can be verified, not assumed. Consumers need to look beyond the marketing, beyond the imagery, beyond the carefully engineered sense of authenticity. Start with ownership. Seek breweries that openly disclose who is behind the brand. Breweries that are proud of their founders, their investors, and their decision-making. Breweries that stay regional because they choose to, not because they are boxed in by limited resources. Breweries that scale carefully, prioritizing quality over quantity and integrity over rapid expansion. Those are the breweries that earn trust. Support the breweries that do not have the financial safety net of a global corporation. These are the ones for whom every production decision matters. When mistakes happen, there is no corporate shield to absorb the cost or deflect scrutiny. Every misstep is visible, accountable, and correctable in a way that strengthens, not hides the brand. That transparency is the backbone of real craft. Read labels, ask questions, research parent companies, know where your beer comes from and how it is made, visit tap rooms, talk to brewers, understand their practices, their values, and the story behind every batch. The connection between drinker and brewer is what craft beer has always been about. It's about trust earned through action, not trust sold through imagery. Craft beer should not be a game of illusion. It should not be a product of corporate marketing disguised as rebellion or nostalgia or heritage. It should be the result of skill, experimentation, and passion applied at a scale that respects both the drinker and the craft itself. True craft beer is a conversation, a commitment, a labor of love that shows in every sip. The lesson is simple but crucial. Don't pay premium prices for manufactured independence. Demand honesty, value transparency. Seek the breweries that actually live the story they tell. Craft beer should be about trust, and trust should never be designed by marketing teams. It should be earned, every single batch, every single bottle, every single pour. That is the difference between illusion and authenticity, between a product and a movement. Stop paying more for the lie. 9 brands, 9 different stories, 1 identical playbook. Budweiser didn't destroy craft beer, it absorbed it. It slipped into the language, borrowed the imagery, and sold you the feeling of independence at a premium price. The beer looked small, local, authentic, but the control was massive, corporate, and hidden. The most concerning part isn't the past, it's what comes next. As long as consumers reward image over honesty, this pattern will continue. More breweries will quietly vanish into conglomerate portfolios. More labels will promise the same charm and locality, while every decision behind the scenes serves profit first. Expansion, consistency, and predictability will quietly replace experimentation, risk, and authenticity. And you'll pay for it, believing in a story that is carefully curated, not genuinely lived. But awareness is powerful. Once you see the pattern, it becomes impossible to ignore. Once you stop paying for the illusion loses its strength. You reclaim choice, you reclaim integrity. You reclaim what craft beer was meant to be: creativity, community, and authenticity. Drink consciously, question aggressively, look beyond the label, the logo, and the marketing copy. Research ownership, trace sourcing, and talk to the brewers. Real craft doesn't need to hide behind stories or images, it thrives in transparency. If a brewery is truly independent, it will say so. It will show its roots, its process, and its people without hiding behind corporate shields. And if it doesn't, you now know what you're really paying for. The power shifts when knowledge replaces trust in illusion. The next time you pour a beer, remember, independence is visible, and it will never be afraid to declare itself.